Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to our lovely remodeled Meriden Public Library for an economic development symposium. We appreciate you coming today. As you know, there's some food and water in the back, so please make sure you get up and do that. So during our presentations today, I'd like to personally thank the speakers. Dale's going to do the introduction of each one of them afterwards, but thank you very much for coming to our city. We appreciate that. Again, we have Counselor and Chairman of the Economic Development Committee, Mike Rohde, with us today, so thank you for joining us again. And we look forward to this. Just to give you a little synopsis of what we're going to be doing, we have been recording all of these sessions. Afterwards, the group will get together and we're going to set up a nice video that we're going to use to publicize what we've done. Also come up with some strategic plans of how we can implement some of the things that we've heard and listened from you over this last 2 months? About 2 months? Yeah. So exactly 2 months. I was pretty much spot on. So again, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Dale. And here you are, my friend.
Okay. Hear me okay? All right. So this is the final session of the strategic planning. As Joe said, we're going to at the end, we'll talk a little bit about what's going to happen after tonight, because this is not the end. This is just maybe even you could call it the middle, the beginning, or whatever. But we're going to get started with some sort of a work plan that incorporates. So to date, we've talked about a lot of things related to Meriden. We try to keep it topical. The first session was about data, all the data about the general economy. Today we're going to get into data a little bit more on the workforce side. We talked about real estate, infrastructure needs. We talked about a variety of topics. At the end of it, we need to then re-engage with the public on what happened. And as Joe said, there's going to be videos. I'm going to certainly watch them all again just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And we had really good speakers from, some local, some not local, and that was by design. All this leads to a conversation on business retention and attraction. You hit the next one? Oh, you got it. All right, next one. Here we go. So business, I'm old school economic developer. I am, you could talk about technology, you could talk about brownfields. We talked about funding. Remember the funding one we did a couple weeks ago, which was pretty intense. But when it comes down to it, it's all about business attraction and business retention. And business retention and attraction is all about what a business needs to want to come here or stay here. And as I said to you earlier, and as I've always preached in my practice for a long, long time, think like a business. Have you ever met payroll or had the stress of meeting payroll or paying bills? All those kinds of things. So the approach that we're taking tonight is to look at the marketplace, look at the things that affect business, develop some kind of a work plan, because everything else revolves around retention and attraction. So the first speaker that we'd like to bring up is Roseanne Ford. As you know, is the president of the Mid-State Chamber of Commerce. There is no other organization that exists that does more business retention than a Chamber of Commerce. And generally, many businesses belong to a chamber and they open their doors even if they're not members. So I think it's really important for the chamber to play a role in any initiative that comes out. I'm just going to give the floor to Roseanne for a minute.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? Happy June 27th. So, a business retention and recruitment program, or BRE, is designed to assist existing businesses in our communities to grow and thrive. At its core, the BRE program collaboratively integrates the informal efforts that are focused on improving relationships between local businesses and the community, that incorporate a wide range of tools and services designed to help local firms become more competitive and grow where they are rather than relocating elsewhere. BRE programs are natural fits to chambers of commerce because chambers have always been and are all about relationships, information, and connections, which is the heart of a BRE program. A BRE program demonstrates collaboration, leadership, partnerships, visitation teams, business awareness, and development of community support. Now that we've defined BRE, I'm pleased to provide a few examples of how we at the Mid-State Chamber of Commerce are actively weaving this into our daily program of work. Over our 128 years in business, we've formed and sustained tremendous partnerships with local, state, and regional entities like Workforce Alliance, Meriden Public Schools, the Community Economic Development Fund, the Black Business Alliance, Spanish American Merchants Association, United Way of Meriden and Wallingford, the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, the State of Connecticut, and those are just a few. There are many more. Of course, our relationship with Medco and the Meriden Economic Development Office goes without saying, as you've heard throughout this workshop series about the three-legged stool. Most of these partnerships date back decades when my predecessor, Sharon Moore, served on the Workforce Board of Directors and other regional groups and task forces. And I'm pleased to continue to lead the charge along with our strong board of directors and staff at the Chamber. These examples that I'm going to share with you today really have to do with today's speakers. So this is just a sampling again of the connections that we have at our disposal to help our area businesses. We'll start with Workforce Alliance. You'll be hearing soon from Bill Villano on the robust programming that they offer to both employers and job seekers. We inform our members and area businesses about the funding that might be available to them through programs like their on-the-job training dollars. We also work with them on student career fairs. We've done that the past 2 years right here at the Meriden Library, and that's in an effort to expose our future leaders, our students, to careers that they may have never considered before. And we've coordinated lots of job fairs with them, and the next one is coming up right here in this room on July 18th. The Connecticut Business and Industry Association, we'll hear from Ashley in a few minutes. We work closely with CBIA to inform our members on key legislative issues and consult with them when our Government and Business Development Committee creates our annual legislative action agenda. They also have a ton of amazing resources on their website, especially in regards to human resources, and we're going to be utilizing that very soon as we just revived our Human Resources Roundtable. And our friends at the State of Connecticut. We receive questions daily from entrepreneurs and folks looking to start a business and how to do it right. So we do direct them to resources like the State of Connecticut website for details on how to do just that. They have a great checklist on their site for entrepreneurs. Just 10 days ago, Joe and I and Tony Terzi had the opportunity to tour Meriden Parks and Facilities with Rachel Lendo, the director of the Connecticut Office of Tourism. And while we were chatting in the van, she was able to provide me a great deal of information that I wasn't aware of that we will be sharing soon on the website ctvisit.com and how area businesses can register their business to be listed out there and also share their events on that portal as well. Speaking of boosting, the Business Boost Loan Program is live and offers low-interest loans to businesses, and we partnered with Chris Edge, the Economic Development Director in Berlin, last fall on a manufacturing resources event where area manufacturers learned about the various programs at their disposal for growth. And over the past few years, we've also coordinated site visits with Senator Blumenthal's office to visit Ragazzino Foods and Miriam Technologies. So that's another example of how we're connecting the local business community with our elected officials. And that gives those businesses a great opportunity to interact one-on-one with Senator Blumenthal, for example, and share information or needs or concerns with him directly. Also, of course, Medco and the city, working together with them on a very regular basis, recently on the BIG program and entrepreneur outreach events and programs, and those we did throughout the pandemic. Also during the pandemic, Joe and I dispersed information on the PPP loan program and delivered PPE, personal protection equipment, to many businesses. We hand delivered those, again, as an opportunity to chat with them, meet with them, and hear about their concerns and relay some of their fears. So again, these are just a few examples of the partnerships that we have and that we continue to have and develop I could have gone on much longer, but we've got a pretty robust agenda. So I'll close with just saying that, it's one thing to form these partnerships, but sustaining these long-time collaborations through solid leadership and the ability to navigate changes through the years is key. We're proud to continue this essential work and need to tout more of this publicly so that our business community and community as a whole understands the relevance of the Mid-State Chamber of Commerce and the role that we play in the success and growth of our area. So thank you. I hope you have enjoyed this series. It's been a great, just a pleasure to be a part of it. So thank you.
Okay, I neglected to tell you that the bios for all the speakers are right in front of you, so please read them. Thank you, Roseanne. One of the things that's been a pleasure for me as an outsider coming into Meriden is to see the collaboration between the city, the chamber, and Medco. You don't see that in all communities, trust me, so it's a really good thing. So the next bunch of speakers are going to talk about things that really matter to businesses and matter in the marketplace. In addition to the market-oriented things we've talked about, there have been discussions about specific sites, 24 Colony, One King, the mall, and all of the economic conditions and the market conditions are going to affect decisions that the decision makers have to make about these sites or to get involved in these sites. So as we develop a work plan, it's going to be with those things in mind as well. So the next speaker is my old friend Bill Villano, who is the president of the Workforce Alliance. It's a big region, 40 towns? 30 towns, still a lot of towns. And I've known Bill for a long time, and Workforce Alliance has been at the forefront of an issue that's really critical to businesses in almost every sector, in particular the sector that Paul's going to talk about later. And I'm going to bring Bill up, and I am going to run his slides. I'm going to clip that out.
Okay, thank you. So my organization, Workforce Alliance, is really responsible, you should be on the first slide, okay, for administering most of the federal and state job training and support dollars that come to the region. You can click it. So my region, I hope you can see this, it's a 30-town region that is also includes 2 councils of government, the Greater New Haven Council of Government and the River Council of Government. We work very closely with all those mayors and selectmen and municipalities. We are one of 5 workforce boards in the state that do pretty much the same thing. Our particular board is 45 years old. See, I'm not that old. It's 45 years old. Yeah, right. It's a business majority and business-led workforce board. You can go to the next slide. Oh, okay. As Roseanne said, we have basically 2 customer bases. We have the job seeker customer base and the business customer base. So what's up there is a lot of the things that we do that help get people to work. So there are people who are transitioning, people who have been laid off or downsized, haven't had a look for a job in 20 years and need help doing that. There are new entrants to the workforce. There are people who are transitioning, don't want to be a shoe salesman anymore, want to do something different, go into healthcare. So we offer a whole variety of services that help people get into the workplace or transition in the workplace. I would say one thing, we're seeing post-COVID a lot more self-employed. A lot of people that have decided that the little niche or little thing that they did is now going to be their job, selling them on Etsy or something like that. So we're seeing more and more of that. And we're also seeing people, I don't know if you read, there was a report recently about the reduction in enrollments in the state college system, both at the 4-year level and the 2-year level. Most of you have seen that, and it's fairly dramatic. So there's a lot of people that, and you can decide whether it's true or not, whether it's college is worth the debt and 4 years, and does it make that much of a difference? So we're seeing some more of those people have decided to go into training rather into college. And on the business side, we help businesses find individuals. So we do that by recruitment, hiring events that Roseanne mentioned that we do around We do them for all size companies. When Amazon came to North Haven, we did it for them, and the mom and pop, we do it for them. So we do all of those kinds of things. We have Dale, somebody mentioned on-the-job training, which says if Dale wanted to hire Ashley and she had most of the skills that he wanted but needed to train her more on the job, we split the wages with the people doing that. And then we do customized training, which we've done for a number of companies. I just want to say too, mention that we're also seeing a reduction in the 4 career centers that I forgot to mention that were on that slide: New Haven, Hamden, Middletown, and Meriden. We operate 3 of them. The Department of Labor operates Hamden. We normally have about 16,000 unduplicated people a year come through those 4 centers for a variety of services, and last year was about 13,000. So we're also seeing a reduction. And I think part of that could also be because we're in a full employment economy. It's a little bit easier for some people to find a job. Okay, next one. What am I on now? Okay. So in terms of what's going on, I looked at the latest job posting figures. Am I in the way? Should I get out of the way here?
Can you see this?
Because, are you sure? Okay. So, and what I can say in all that I'm going to show you in this is healthcare, 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 healthcare. That's it. It's been the leading, dominating the job ads for years, and will continue as we go forward. So you can see both retail trade and accommodation and food services took a tremendous hit in COVID. The hospitality and food service lost 50% of their workforce, and you can imagine that's how many people that is. So they're still trying to recover. Manufacturers are still looking for people. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I won't steal your thunder, I promise. You do next one. And so as you can imagine, if you look at location here, you've got Yale New Haven Health Systems, which, by the way, is the largest employer in the state now with all the hospitals that they have. And then you have Middletown, Meriden, and Wallingford all around Mid-State, so you can see where the postings are, and that's pretty much what drives that. Go ahead, Dale. And then you can see by employer, with the exception of Yale University, all of that is healthcare or healthcare related. Marrakesh does a lot of support services for people with disabilities and other issues. And the Elevance, I have no idea what they do. They just say they do everything related to healthcare. So what exactly they do, I'm not really sure. And then the last one, you can see, again, related to healthcare and retail still trying to recover post-COVID. So I want to just end here and talk about the 2 biggest challenges that we have in terms of the workforce now. And I think I'll start by saying, we're in a full employment economy. We're 4.3% in the state. 4%, 5% is considered full employment. And if you're unemployed in a full employment economy, it's usually because you have some issues. You have some barriers, some things that you need to deal with in order to become employed. So 19 years ago, I asked my management information services guy to say, show me how people do on tests, because everybody who comes in who does not have a college degree, we test. We want to make sure that they can get through the training, that kind of thing. And what I thought was going to happen, there's 3 groups here represented. You can see dislocated workers, adults, and the Jobs First program, which is the state's welfare to work program. And what I thought was going to happen, happened, that the dislocated workers did better on the testing than the adults, who did better than the Jobs First individuals. A lot of high school dropouts in the Jobs First. And so they did better on the testing, and they did better on wages. They got, they did better on wages. What I never expected was, and you can look at all this gobbledygook, but just if you can see, and I'm going to step out of the way just for a second, the bottom row is the most important thing there, okay? And this isn't a small little study of a couple of hundred people. So now over 19 years, this is 17,000 people in this sample, you still have the best performing individuals who come in, the dislocated workers who in theory have some more skills, maybe some more education, some more work experience, are still at 62% below basic skills, which means in reading or math or both, they are testing below that, right? Worse for adults and, and almost 90% for the TANF population. So our biggest challenge is the upfront part is getting people to a point academically where they can actually be successful in their training. And then on the other side, you can do the next slide, is transportation. And this is not anything, So this study here, I just want to say, this study is a little dated. We did a study with the South Central Council of Governments and the NAACP on transportation. And what we found, as you can see there, people who had access to transportation were 10% unemployment at that time, 35% at the unemployment rate. Now those numbers now will be better, they'll be lower, but the unemployment without transportation will still be 3 or 4 times the people who have access to transportation. So that's our other biggest challenge. So lastly, I was asked to show how we collaborate with our partners. And so first, and you heard from Roseanne, we have agreements with the 3 major chambers. They're the metro chambers, right? You call the metro chambers, the 3, yeah. So they're like the 12 biggest chambers in the state. So we have Meriden, Middlesex, and Greater New Haven. So they promote our business. We do hiring events with them. We sponsor events. They promote us on their website. They promote us on events. We sponsor. And right now, there's something called the regional sector partnerships, which are business partnerships on certain businesses. And we're working with New Haven and Middlesex Chamber, and we have bioscience and manufacturing. And I do want to talk about manufacturing in a minute. With the school systems, we work with the school systems for in-school students, a lot of work experience programs, job readiness programs we do with the school. I have, well, let me just tell them. Okay, so on the manufacturing, really quickly, my counterpart in the Eastern Workforce Board developed a short-term manufacturing training program. Went to businesses, electric boat that employs, I don't know, 25,000. Do you know, Paul? I don't even know.
Yeah, 25,000 is a good number.
25,000 people.
Hiring 5,300 a year.
Yeah, and then they sat with the mom and pop 20-person metal fabricating place, and they said, what are the core competencies that somebody would need to come and work in any of your organizations? And the Manufacturing Association, who we deal with, and that's one of the bullets coming, developed a curriculum, developed an assessment, and that program now is several years old, and they're just about to have placed 4,000 people in manufacturing jobs. And the way that works, and there's a lot of people that say, our community college system has great manufacturing programs, but they're 8 months long, they're $8,000, that kind of thing. And people have said to us, I can't give you 8 months, but I can give you 5 weeks, or I can give you 8 weeks for the plastics program. So we do that, and the employers do the balance of the training on the job. So wherever you go, that company will teach. So whether it's, again, plastics or some fabrication or whatever it might be. So we funded the Meriden School System, for example, who is wanting to be a partner in that to help develop curriculum and to help train instructors. And one thing that I didn't really mention a lot is our future workforce. We have a big summer program, and I give the governor a lot of credit because he doubled the funding for it this year from $5 million statewide to $10 million statewide. And every study, every report, every monograph, whatever, that I've read about youth employment says that the earlier you can attach a young person to the workforce, the more likely they're to be working at 25, the less likely they're going to be laid off in there. They'll probably earn more, less likely in criminal justice. So, it's a good thing that we're working hard because I got one more. Okay, yeah, that's fine. This is my little soapbox, right? So we're the 7th oldest state in the country. We have anemic and sometimes negative population growth. In the last census, we grew 0.9%. We didn't even grow 1%. All of that silver tsunami, retirements that they were talking about in the early 2000s didn't happen because of the recession, and then didn't happen to COVID. It's starting to happen now. And we have a reasonable outmigration of our young people, south and west. And when I talk about this with Patrick Flaherty, the Department of Labor guy, says, well, yeah, in addition, they were never born either. So I just want to say the summer program is critical, and in Meriden, the YMCA is leading that program, and we'll probably put about 100 kids to work this summer. So that would be good. What am I on, higher ed? Yeah, okay, so yeah. Higher Ed and Industry Association, I'll just put together. I mentioned about the manufacturing program, how that worked. Both Middlesex and Gateway Community College run that program for us. As I said, some of the school systems are looking to have a pre-manufacturing program, so that works. And then on community organizations, and one of my board members, Maria Harlow here from the United Way, is working with us to even make how our process works better, make it easier for people to get in and make it easier for people to navigate, and also referrals. I think I didn't mention Women and Family, that organization, they do some training for us, young people, again, a lot of job readiness. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
You were close to lunch, buddy.
Was I?
Yeah.
Did I make it?
He bet me lunch that he would be under a certain amount of time.
And I was
I'll
afraid,
give it to you.
I was afraid that he was going to be slow on moving the slides to help.
Yeah, there's my lunch over there, right? All right. Well, some of that is upsetting, but I think where we go with the speakers going forward is to end up, of course, Mark's going to give us definitely the clouds are clearing and the glass half full when we get to it. So again, think like a business. Understand what businesses need. It's the only way to really develop a plan of action that helps businesses stay and helps businesses come to town. And who better to know this but CBIA? So Ashley Zane is the Senior Public Policy Associate, excuse me. And then I'm going to run her slides. Yeah, right. Beautiful.
Okay.
Tell me when to go.
All right, so my name is Ashley Zane. I'm a Senior Public Policy Associate for Connecticut Business and Industry Association. So for anyone who doesn't know what we are probably the largest business association in the state. We have a little over 4,000 plus members. They are in pretty much every sector of the economy, everything from manufacturing to retail, construction, biotech, you name it, we probably have a member in it. We also represent the big guys like the Sikorskis out there and also the smaller mom and pop shops. We have one member who is a trinket and gift store owner who probably has one employee. So we really run the gambit. We also play in pretty much every policy area up at the Capitol. I'm on the advocacy team, so I am usually at Hartford in the Legislative Office Building, proposing bills, testifying in front of the committees. And again, we play pretty much in everything from housing, taxes, of course, labor, of course. And we've also gotten really involved in zoning. So we're there, we're bugging everybody, the governor, legislators, doesn't matter who you are. If you're an elected official, we're probably having a meeting at some point. So I think for a lot of people, if you're pretty familiar with what this looks like, it comes out every year. It ranks all 50 states on their business climate. And I think if you were to look at it as, one of your child or grandchild's report card, we're not doing so great. But we have actually moved up and improved over the last year. We're up 9 spots from the previous year. We've also moved up 2 spots on cost of doing business, 5 spots for the economy, and 9 spots for cost of living. I know that might shock a lot of people here, but it is true compared to our neighboring states. When we think about recruitment and retention of businesses, what our reputation is to other states really matters. So while we're trying to recruit within Meriden, we also have to keep in mind that you're competing with not only your other towns, but you're also competing with other states and other states who have similar demographics and similar landscapes to Connecticut. So it's always really important to keep that in the back of your mind about how we stack up with everybody else. And of course, we always try to keep an eye on the economy. At CBIA, actually, we have on our website a tracker that keeps track of all of these numbers. It's right there when you go to cbia.com. And we just like to keep track of how things are doing. These numbers are constantly changing, but as you can see, there are a lot of greens on there and a lot of improvements from where we have been in the past. So we are looking up, but we do still have our challenges associated with the economy. So, as was previously mentioned, healthcare is one of the biggest growers right now in terms of industry. Government is also expanding as well, and we're seeing, of course, manufacturing starting to punch above our weight class right there. And then we're also starting to see a boom in construction as well. And there's a lot of factors that are leading to this. You know, we're still seeing the last bit of the federal COVID money out there. That's going to help some of the healthcare boost and the boom, and also the bioscience and the biotech industries. New Haven is becoming a leader in bioscience and biotech. They're really starting to focus in on the newest technology, whether it's using AI to help out with health services, and then also with our big guys like the Pfizers of the world, where vaccines have been an increased focus, and how we can speed up the process of conception to delivery. The other thing that was already mentioned was the regional sector partnerships by the Office of Workforce Strategies, which was created, I believe, 2 years ago now. What they're really trying to focus is get everybody on the same page when it comes to efforts that they're doing within their specific industry. So we're putting more of a regional approach on it, more collaboration even between regions, so that we can get everybody kind of rowing in the same direction instead of being in competition with each other or putting out conflicting information for job seekers and businesses. We're also going to start seeing that federal infrastructure funds come out. It's going to be dealing with resiliency, with new construction. So we're really going to start to see the construction industries pick up. And we're also seeing increased state focus on priorities like housing, like brownfield redevelopment. So we're going to see a lot more money not only coming from the federal government, but also from the state government in various forms. And you know, when we think about other things that are affecting certain sectors, we can't not talk about AI and automation. For a lot of industries, this is actually streamlining their processes, making them more efficient, allowing them to invest in other areas of their business. But for some, it is taking away jobs. It is leading to a reduced need for what they offer. So we do need to be very cognizant about what that impact is going to be when we're trying to recruit and retain businesses, not only for today, but also for the next 20 years. So there are, of course, you know, the barriers to expanding businesses within the state. Workforce is the number one thing that we hear at CBIA, hear from our member companies. But there's a lot that we're doing as a state and as an organization to try to help out with that workforce issue. There's a lot of efforts being made to create those stackable credentials so that you could stack up, you know, the 8-week courses here, another 5-week course here, to create that full picture employee that businesses need. Again, a lot of that is being done by the Office of Workforce Strategies and the Workforce Alliance, and of course within Paul's office as well. Another thing that's coming out there is the student loan tax credit, another way to just keep students and keep workforce within the state, having another type of incentive for business to offer their employees to try to keep them. Workforce housing, or just housing in general, is actually one of the things that the state is really trying to focus on to be able to have a place for people to live. You know, if EB is trying to recruit 5,000 new employees, they've got to live somewhere. They can't just hang out at EB all day and that's where they live, work, and breathe. So we're really going to be focusing on that to try to increase the workforce volume. And then also work from home. That's had a really big impact on businesses and where they're choosing to stay and where they're choosing to grow. For a lot of people, you don't actually have the work from home capability. Your job, manufacturing, for example, you can't work from home from the factory floor, for example. But it is something to consider, and it's something that I think when you're looking at which businesses you want to come in, you also want to make sure you're looking at the footprint that they're going to take up as well. Increased regulations, labor, and of course permitting are some of the top issues that are keeping businesses from expanding. The Department of Energy and Environmental Protections is a little bit tricky sometimes to get through. There are also local zoning issues that you also have to get through. So that's one of the big things that we see from CBIA members. And then increased costs. It's no surprise, Connecticut is not a low tax state. It's not a low cost state at all. But we are seeing things that are adding on to the burden of a business either expanding or deciding to relocate. You know, one of those big costs is the energy costs. So we are one of the highest energy cost states in the country, and that is a factor that is playing into whether businesses are deciding to come into Connecticut or expand their current footprint. But we have a lot of great things that I think we need to highlight a little bit more because, again, our reputation does tend to precede us when we're out there trying to recruit and also retain our businesses. You know, we are still a top 10 state when it comes to educational attainment. We have fantastic relationships with the universities. Our universities pump out some of the best employees and workforce in the nation. So that's something that we need to highlight to recruit businesses in. And any connection with a university is really valuable. And then, you know, we have seen, for the first time in a while, positive net migration into the state. We've had about 57,000 people coming in. A lot of it is from New York. I'll be really curious personally to see how long this does last. We saw net migration after 9/11 because people didn't want to be in the cities because they were afraid of what was going on globally. So when we start to see children being enrolled in the schools, we start to see some permanence, a future workforce. So hopefully we'll see a lot of these people loving Connecticut, loving the environment that they're in, and then deciding to stay, adding to the workforce, and hopefully also maybe starting a business and staying here. The other thing that we do really well in Connecticut is we're a top 10 R&D activity state. So not only do we manufacture, but we also create the ideas that we then manufacture and create. So that's something to tout to businesses who are looking to expand, who are looking to take that next leap of there's R&D tax credits out there. There's assistance in other ways than just monetary assistance. So we need to continue to develop those startup companies, those young companies who need that additional boost in R&D. And that's a selling point that a lot of other states simply just don't have. You know, quality of life in Connecticut, we normally have 4 seasons when it's not, 90 degrees in May. But quality of life is what we have to offer. We have beaches, we have mountains, we have New York, we have Boston. All of these things, we have a cultural center, we have museums, we have theaters. So all of these things are things that we can sell not only to the future workforce to come into the state, but also businesses to say, hey, you want to move here because we have cultural centers. We have diversity, we have urban centers, we have rural centers. There are options for you to come in. And we're not Florida, which can be a really great thing. The insurance markets are currently pulling out of areas in Florida. So if you're a business in Florida or a homeowner in Florida, I might not be thinking of becoming a snowbird and going down to Florida. So we have invested in our resiliency. We have invested in climate change actions to protect our companies and our businesses when things do happen. And that's a huge selling point that a lot of other states, especially down south, who we compete with, they don't have that advantage. And then finally, Connecticut lately has focused on developing the workforce and entrepreneurs who have historically been overlooked. The demographic that is growing the fastest in terms of starting up companies and then also keeping these companies for a year plus are African American women. So when we are looking at other states and asking those businesses, hey, come to Connecticut, come to my town, my city, there are a lot of reasons why people who are overlooked in other areas would want to come to Connecticut. So when we think about recruitment, expansion in Connecticut, there are a lot of barriers, but there are a lot of things that are being worked on right now to overcome that. And just to kind of close up, CBIA, we work, in addition to advocating, we work with a lot of our partners. We have 2 affiliates, Ready CT, who is a K-12 workforce program, so they run a lot of things for kids who aren't going to college, who are looking for their summer internship programs. And then we also work with Constep, who is the state's MEP. They focus solely on manufacturing. I'll let Paul maybe touch on them a little bit later. But we really also like to partner with our businesses who are members, highlight them, spotlight them, give them our podcast time. So we, Chambers of Commerce, of course. So we really want to partner with everybody and anyone that we can to just get the message out there to businesses and employees. So yeah.
Thanks, Ashley. It's always sobering to listen to CBIA. They really have their ear to the many industries in Connecticut. Thank you for ending on some positive notes. But it is a challenge. When you talk about business attraction, there are site selectors that maybe represent a company from out of state. They look at all this stuff behind the scenes. You have no idea that they are looking at Meriden before they even try to come to Meriden. They told me that their job is to eliminate sites, not to pick sites. So it's really important to work on these issues, whether it's a Meriden issue or a statewide or regional issue. As an economic developer for a long time, I told Paul when I first met him tonight that I'm a huge proponent of having a sector-based strategy as an economic developer. The real estate stuff's really important, but without a sector-based strategy for business attraction and business retention, real estate will become vacant. So with that, manufacturing has a long history in Meriden. There's other sectors, but tonight we're going to talk about the key issues. I think we heard some of the themes, but I'm very curious to hear what Paul LeBoy has to say as the Chief Manufacturing Officer for the entire state of Connecticut.
Thank you, Dale, and good afternoon, everybody. It certainly is an honor to be here to talk to you a little bit about the manufacturing sector. But I want to share with you a little bit about what's happening in the state of Connecticut first. Then I want to talk to you a little bit about the manufacturing sector. I want to talk to you about opportunities that we have for growth, talk to you a little bit about some of the challenges and a little bit about what we're doing, and I'm going to do it in all about 10 to 12 minutes, so buckle up. Here we go. I don't have slides, but everything that I'm going to talk about is on the manufacturing.ct.gov website. So anything that I'm going to talk about, and I do have some hard copies of a plan that we've just recently rolled out, but all this information is available to you. So briefly about the state of Connecticut. You know, interesting thing about the state of Connecticut is we just came off of what we call the lost decade. And by the way, this was 6 years ago. 6 years ago was the lost decade, right? We had balanced budget deficits, we had people moving out of the state, we had this doom and gloom over the state, and we had all of these things, and everybody thought that Connecticut, you know, we were our own worst enemy, and we actually talked bad about ourselves to other people. And in the last 6 years, I just wanted to give you an idea of the renaissance that we've gone through, and to basically let everybody know that lost decade is well in our rearview mirror. We've had 6 years of budget surpluses. We have paid down long-term pension debt of over $7 billion, which saves $600 million a year in the operating budget of the state of Connecticut. That's $600 million of taxes we don't have to raise to run the government. That's huge on a $20 billion budget. That's a huge amount of money. Our rainy day fund is maxed out by statutory limits at $3.3 billion. If there is a recession, it won't happen in Connecticut because we have the reserves to be able to get through tough times here in the state as well. Our credit rating has been improved by all the credit rating agencies. And why that's important, especially if you're running municipalities, you know why it's important, is that it means you get better interest rates. And better interest rates on your debt means that you don't have to raise as much taxes to be able to do that. In addition to that, the governor and the legislature just implemented the single largest tax cut in the history of the state of Connecticut, over $1 billion in tax cuts that are going to people that live in Meriden, Connecticut, that'll go back into the economy. So the Connecticut of old is it changing. It's changing. The culture is changing. We are the second happiest state. We are #1 for hiking trails and quality of life. There's so many things that we are great at that when we really start to focus, those things really start to come out. So let me talk a little bit about how in the state of Connecticut, the culture is changing. 57,000 more people coming in. You may say, well, on a population of 3.6 million, which by the way is the all-time high in the state of Connecticut, you might say, well, that's not a big deal. In that same time period, 631,000 people left the state of New York. So would you rather have 631,000 people leave or 57,000? If I had one person come in, I'd be ecstatic, right? We had 57,000 people move in to the state of Connecticut. And again, our motto is, anybody know what the state motto is? Anybody tell me what the state motto is? He who transplants sustains, right? So when you come to Connecticut, you're going to sustain. You're going to have a great quality of life. So Ashley, we're going to keep them here, all right? Bets on that, okay? Let me give you a little bit of overview of the manufacturing sector. Now, the manufacturing sector in Connecticut is extremely important to the overall economy of Connecticut. We are the second largest industry to the insurance industry, and we're lapping on insurance's heels, and very shortly, manufacturing will be the #1 industry in the state of Connecticut. And let me tell you why. We are #1 in the country in aircraft engine manufacturing. 25% of all aircraft engines are made in the state of Connecticut, and the supply chain that supports that is here as well. We are #2 in the country in shipbuilding. Shipbuilding. We build ships in Connecticut? We do. They're called submarines. 50% of the Navy's budget for shipbuilding is going into submarines, and it's coming into Connecticut. We are #2 in the country in per capita spending from the Department of Defense, meaning at dollars per resident, we are #2 next to Virginia. Now, Connecticut only has one military base, the Groton Sub Base. San Antonio, Texas has 17 military bases within their general area. The money that comes into Connecticut from the Department of Defense comes in from manufacturing. And we manufacture the most sophisticated machines known to humans, nuclear submarines, helicopters, jet engines here in the state of Connecticut. Now, #2 on a per capita basis, you say, okay, we're #7 in the country in raw dollar investment from the Department of Defense. Who are we competing with? California, Texas, Florida, Virginia, Maryland, New York, Connecticut, #7, right? So when Ashley says we punch above our weight class, we walk amongst the giants when it relates to manufacturing and defense manufacturing. Does anybody know how many Connecticut's can fit inside of Texas? 49 Connecticut's can fit inside of Texas, and we still have room for Rhode Island. Come on, little buddy. Come along with us. 49. You could put a whole country of Connecticut's inside of Texas, but yet we're competing with them on a day-to-day basis as it relates to manufacturing. And we're not just a defense manufacturing sector, a huge medical device manufacturing ecosystem here, all built around Medtronic, which is the old US Surgical right in this area in North Haven, that has created an incredible supply chain around this area as well. In addition to that, we have the world's largest organic snack factory is in Connecticut. It's out in Danbury, Connecticut. It's called Lesser Evil Popcorn. If you've never had Lesser Evil Popcorn, buy it and you can thank me later. Okay? World's largest, $100 million company sells popcorn. We have the world's largest non-alcoholic brewing facility here in Connecticut. It's Athletic Brewing in Milford, Connecticut. Those businesses did not exist 7 years ago, but yet today they are the world's largest. And they continue to grow here in the business environment in the state of Connecticut. So we've got this really exciting and vibrant industry here in manufacturing in Connecticut, but we also have a deep family history in manufacturing in Connecticut. We have companies that have been here since the 1700s, the 1800s. I left a company yesterday, 77 years, third generation that's running it. We have third generations, fourth generations, fifth generations, all making things that save lives, that protect the country, that are innovative. We talked about bioscience in New York, in New Haven, and all the work that's being done around there. But when you really start to look at manufacturing and you really look at what the clusters are, we really are around aerospace, shipbuilding, medical device, again, this growing food industry as well. But again, it cuts across this entire spectrum in the manufacturing sector. So opportunities for growth. One of the biggest opportunities for growth in the manufacturing sector is going to be around the clean economy. It's going to be around green energy. Connecticut is the birthplace of the fuel cell, and it's the birthplace of using hydrogen as a fuel source. It is also going to be, it is the birthplace, and it is the only active port in the United States that's marshaling offshore wind projects for the next 10 years. offshore wind, right now there are 19 turbines installed off the United States, and there will be 65 done in the next couple of months or so. That's called Revolution Wind, which will provide renewable energy and power, wind power, to Connecticut and Rhode Island. And after that will be Sunrise Wind, which is a New York project, which will be 85. Virginia is building a port. There's a port in New Bedford that is sometimes active and sometimes not active. But that provides us with an opportunity to build an entire manufacturing sector around offshore wind and around the clean economy. All of the components for offshore wind are coming from Europe now, and we have a tremendous opportunity to grow there as well. And then we're also looking at grants from the federal government around building out the clean economy in certain clusters and certain areas across the state where there's that opportunity. But things like battery manufacturing is actually a huge opportunity. We are this far away in Connecticut from turning every one of your homes into a mini power plant. How would you like free energy and then be able to sell energy back to the grid? Who'd like that in their house? Raise your hand, okay? And to have it be carbon neutral, carbon free, carbon neutral, okay? Solar panels, heat pumps, and battery storage in your house, we're very close. It's the battery storage piece that we're waiting on. And when we do that, when the sun's shining, you can store battery, you can store energy in your house, you can use the energy that's being done, you can sell that energy back. On a rainy day, you can keep the energy in your house and you can use it to be able to do that. But we have this potential, and again, that's all carbon free. So we're very close to that. There's a company in Connecticut that we're working with to grow and expand here to be able to bring that battery technology to commercialization.
The material is also from here, or it's imported, the material to make the batteries.
So the material to make the batteries and to do all of that is generally comes from outside the state, right? Those are kind of
the country. The state or the
well, then the country. Yeah. So they come from outside the country. See, that's the thing about manufacturing. Manufacturing brings significant dollars from outside the state of Connecticut into the state of Connecticut. You know, when you think about the Department of Defense, we have $20 billion a year coming from the Department of Defense into Connecticut to make things that then go back out again. That's creating jobs, that's creating, you know, income, and that's all the money that's being spent in the Main Street businesses, right? People are getting paychecks working at these big companies. That money comes from outside, and then they're going and they're spending it in our restaurants, they're spending it in our retail stores, they're spending it in these other areas.
I have a couple questions, and we'll leave time for questions for everyone at the end. So my question, given the broader marketplace in Connecticut, it's a two-part question. What are the workforce skills needed in this region that would help this broader economy? And the second question is, what are the supply chain opportunities for the various industries that you're talking about?
Okay, so let's do with workforce first. Does an amazing job on workforce development. Amazing job on making sure that people have opportunities. But guess what? We're never going to have enough people, ever, to fill the open jobs that we have. Never going to have it. Birth rates are down. Immigration is a mess, right? I mean, manufacturing was built on immigration. By the way, we're all from somewhere. Please, my message to Washington, we're all from somewhere. Can we figure this out? Please, can we welcome people to come here? I give hope but on that. But anyway, so as it relates to workforce, we have the most sophisticated workforce development system in the country. We are doing things to get people back to work, eliminating barriers of getting people from preventing them to work. We're doing all of that, but we have to come to the realization that we're never going to have enough people. In the manufacturing sector, we have a unique opportunity to drive industrial automation, to get the machines to do the work for people we're never going to have. So the manufacturing workforce strategy is a three-component strategy, and that's what I have here to share with you. Number one, it's talent development. It's leveraging all of the tremendous resources that we have in the state of Connecticut to develop our talent. Number two, it's creating a state culture for growth. Now, we talk about business retention and business expansion and business attraction. Many years ago, we used to pay companies to come to Connecticut. We used to give them tax incentives to come to Connecticut. We would pay people to stay here. I would love somebody to pay me to stay in my house. We used to pay companies to stay here. Governor Lamont said, no more. We're not doing that. We're not bribing companies to come here. We're not bribing them to stay. What we're going to focus on is we're going to build communities where people want to live and play. And if they want to live and play in these communities, they'll find jobs, right? Think about it. Makes sense, right? Are we out there trying? Somebody said to me, you know, Tennessee, they said to me the other day, Tennessee, they just announced that BMW, the largest BMW manufacturing plant is going to be built in Western Tennessee. Anybody ever been to Western Tennessee? Yeah, okay, because there's nothing. And it's going to be built in Western Tennessee. How come Connecticut can't get a big automotive plant? Do you ever drive around Connecticut? Right? I mean, you know, there's no land. You know, we were talking about that. You know, you get stuck on a highway in Texas and where there's a big traffic accident, you're dead. There's no roads to go, right? You want to go to the airport and you have a driver that knows the back roads and there's a bridge burning on 95, you're going to get to the airport on time, right? Because we're densely populated. That was an example that he gave me earlier, by the way.
I gave that one earlier.
So we're densely populated, but my point simply is that because we're densely populated, we don't have these opportunities. We're not building a chips factory in Connecticut. We're not building an automotive factory in Connecticut. We're leveraging what we're really good at in the state, and that is the workforce that we have. You know, Governor Lamont says this all the time. He said, listen, if I was the governor of Texas, I'd be selling oil and gas. If I was the governor of Florida, I'd be selling sunshine and tourism. He goes, I'm not. I'm the governor of Connecticut. I sell the advanced workforce that we have. We have the most advanced, smartest, and most productive workforce in the nation. And we've had manufacturing businesses that have tried to build plants in other parts of the country and have regretted that because the workforce here is so far superior. And Shane Eddy, who's the president of Pratt & Whitney, says there's no way you can replicate Connecticut's workforce anywhere else in the United States. And that is our strategic asset, and that's all of us sitting here in the room. So from a workforce development perspective in the manufacturing sector, it's all about how do we get machines to do the work for people that we're never going to have. And listen, it's happening all around you. Anybody been into a McDonald's lately? How do you order your food? You go to your little kiosk, right? Where did you go 5 years ago? You went to a big long bank of registers that had a nice person with a nice outfit there saying, hi, how are you? Where's that person now? They don't exist. It doesn't matter. If McDonald's had 5 registers, there'd be nobody behind them. Huh? You could do it on an app. I can't tell you the last time I went into Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, Dunkin' Donuts in my car, pull up, Paul, they give me my order, away I go. I don't, you know. But that's my point. My point is, but that technology is not driven by anything else of the fact that there's just not people to do the work. And so if we can't find people to do the work, we have a choice. We shut down or we adapt. And we're adapting. And we're going to have to adapt in the manufacturing sector to drive automation, digital transformation, artificial intelligence, industrial automation, and robotics. And by the way, it's being done all around us. It's being done here in Meriden. I've visited dozens of companies in Meriden, and I can tell you that there are small companies here that are doing amazing things that nobody knows about because they're just out there, you know, they're doing their thing as well. So we have tremendous opportunities to grow, but we're really focused in the manufacturing sector about getting to full employment in the manufacturing sector before we go out and try to attract big businesses to come here. And again, we're land constrained, so we're not going to get a chips factory. You know, there's 3 chip factories right now. These are billions of dollars of projects, and they're hundreds of millions of square feet. There's 3 being done right now that I know of. One outside of New York, so it's actually east of Albany. So if you go north and east of Albany, you know there's nothing there. The second one is east of Columbus, Ohio. Intel is building a facility there. And this one, if you can figure this one out for me, I would appreciate that. It requires a tremendous amount of water to manufacture microchips. So the third one we're building is in Phoenix, Arizona. So you can figure out why they're building one in Phoenix, Arizona when the Colorado River is drying up. Let me know, but we'll figure that, you know, that's for somebody else to figure out. But so that's just not going to happen, right? We need to leverage our strengths, which is things may be invented here, but they won't be manufactured here. And I'll give you an example. Pfizer, every new drug that Pfizer creates is actually invented here in Connecticut, and then all of the trial drugs are manufactured here. So for all the trials that they do, they manufacture the drug. When it goes into full production, it goes to Germany, because Germany has the full production facilities. Now, Pfizer's a global corporation, right? They have facilities all over the world. It just so happens that a lot of the stuff that we do here in Connecticut, but it's invented in Connecticut. It's created in Connecticut. R&D is done in Connecticut. And those are the jobs that are high value, high paying jobs that'll be here in the state of Connecticut. From my perspective, the Office of Manufacturing, you may or may not know this, we're the only state with a Chief Manufacturing Officer. We're the only state with an Office of Manufacturing, and my job, simply put, is to coordinate all of the resources that we have around manufacturing. I spend all day holding stakeholder meetings, collaboration meetings, coordination meetings. about meeting the two objectives of the manufacturing sector, which is full employment by 2030 and to have manufacturing be 20% of the state's gross domestic product by 2030 as well. And to give you a little bit of frame of reference on that, in 2021 we were 10% of the state's GDP. In 2022 we were 12.6% of the state's GDP. Preliminary numbers in 2023 put us at 13.6% of the state's GDP. So as long as military and aerospace are still kicking it, we're going to still be able to grow GDP here in the state of Connecticut. And manufacturing jobs are life-changing, career-changing jobs. These are not jobs that are paying minimum wage jobs. They're not. At Platt Tech down in Platt Tech in Milford, the 2023 graduating class, every single person in that high school graduating class from the manufacturing program at Platt Tech got a job paying more than $20 an hour as an 18-year-old. That's a $40,000 a year job. With a little bit of overtime, it's a $50,000 a year job. After 4 years, that worker is probably making $75,000, $80,000 a year with no debt, and the person that went through 4 years of college is coming out of college hoping they can get a $75,000 a year job with $200,000 or $300,000 worth of debt as well. So the opportunities in manufacturing exist to be able to change people's lives and give them the opportunity to succeed. So we're focused on talent development, we're focused on building a culture of growth, and we're focused on driving automation and driving technology to do the work for people that we won't have. That's Connecticut's plan to full employment in the manufacturing sector.
I have a quick question. You mentioned before about, what you're working on, but I worked a lot with the immigration population. This is a big pool of people that are coming from other countries with titles, but they lack the language.
Yeah.
What's the plan? Because now they're pushing the broom with all their PhD and doctorate from their country, but because they lack the language, what is there between what you're doing and what the gentleman is doing from Workforce Alliance together to get these people out in the front where the education means a lot?
No. It's a great, in my job, what I learn is something new every single day, right? And so if you have this group of immigrant population that can do so much more, but there are barriers to their entry, the first call should be right here to your workforce board and to say these are the barriers, what can we do to solve it? And then they reach out to industry. I'll give you an example. Anybody know of Ciabasso Bakery down in New Haven? You know Ciabasso, right? You know him well, right? You know Charlie, right? Well, you know what it's like to work in a bakery? It's hot. It's sticky, right? You know who doesn't mind working in a bakery? Afghan refugees. It's always hot and sticky in Afghanistan, so and they're getting it's actually no one's shooting at them, so it's good. It's a good place to have a job. You know what they did? They translated their entire employee manual into Pashtun, so they can give them that, and then they have an interpreter. You always find one person. When I ran Cary Manufacturing, we had a little area called Little Laos because we had a woman that had been working there for 30 years. She was Laotian. She was bilingual. But anytime we needed workers, she would bring in workers that didn't speak English, but she would translate for them. And so we would just go to her side, this is what we need to be done. So I would turn around, and then they'd all go to work, and they'd get the work done. So there's ways that, especially in the manufacturing sector, there are ways that we can adapt to be able to accept those people into the manufacturing sector. But I would be knocking on this gentleman's door and his team, because
I was working in the Waterbury area
Yeah.
at the time, so that's different workforce.
Yeah.
So
well, that's all right.
and I was working with them.
Yeah.
But it's like so much.
Yeah.
It's a big population. You got Portuguese and you got South America,
Yeah.
the whole South America.
There's jobs. There are manufacturing jobs waiting for these people. So.
And there's a lot of doctors and there's scrubbing toilets right now.
Again, the more we know about it, the more we can work on it. So the more we can work on it. I'm way more than 10 or 12 minutes. I have no idea how long I went. But I know I'm longer than that.
No.
So, yeah. Wait, when do you want to have lunch? I'd love to have lunch with you.
Adriana.
There you go.
That's what he promised me.
Oh, did he really?
In New Haven, yeah.
Oh, wow.
One of my favorite restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm sure you have a good one in Meriden. 2 or 3 of them. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Paul. I took a lot of notes for things to follow up on the work plan. A lot of thinking about business visitation, which is a normal thing that people do, but with a purpose. So we'll talk about this later. So, this is all about collaboration, this whole process. We can't get from where we started today to where we're going to end up right now. Mark Benigni is the superintendent of schools. We talked briefly on the phone, and he's going to give us the glass half full?
Always half full.
Oh, there you go.
Always half full.
You got to come over here. Are you going to run the slide?
I'm gonna do
Oh,
so
you're gonna
many
do it?
slides, I'm gonna stand to the side.
I think we can hear, cameraman, hold on one second. You need this.
Okay.
Yeah, because the cameraman is, got to shift for a minute. I'm going to go over there.
Yeah, I was gonna, this will definitely, I'll be loud enough, but thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit. It's good to see old friends and neighbors here and folks we've worked with in different worlds and different realms. So I'm Mark Benigni, superintendent of schools. My why, what I want for my own 2 kids who are in the system, I want for every child who attends the Meriden Public Schools, and that's to be challenged in an environment where they can spread their wings, where they're supported when they have those tough days, but they're always challenged in a place where they know they can be comfortable every day. Bria's a graduate this past June and will be attending Brown next year, and my son will be a senior. Our school system, 13 schools, 8 elementary, 3 middle, and 2 high schools, and 3 associated programs. We have over 8,800 students. 81% of our population identify as students of color. 78% qualify for free and reduced price meals. However, we're universal free breakfast and lunch. If you're hungry, you eat. And there's no stigma to it. We have a great food service department. 21% special ed, 20% multilingual learners, and that's a growing population. We know we can't educate our students this way anywhere. It doesn't work. I mean, we struggle to sit for presentation after presentation. It just won't work anymore. So we all know that sound. I never was very good at Pac-Man, but I'll still challenge anyone to a game of Galaga. But game-based learning has a role in our schools today. It's how our students are engaged. And it's moved well beyond the Oregon Trail that many of us remember. And literally, technology has put the world in the hands of our students. It's at their fingertips. Our guiding principle in the Meriden Public Schools, regardless of socioeconomic status or prior learning experiences, all students must be able to access digital resources to expand their world. Our core values: 1, we all learn differently. 2, voice and choice matter. It matters for our students and for our staff. Learning spaces need to be flexible. I'll talk a little bit more about this. And we must embrace this concept of anytime, anywhere learning. Like, learning just, it happens outside of those 4 walls of the classroom, and we need to support that and embrace that. We created a roadmap to student success. This is going on year 15 for me as superintendent in Meriden. But the roadmap really hasn't changed. We've made some tweaks along the way, but the goals have remained simple. We need to challenge all students. We collapsed academic levels. We had 5 levels. We collapsed it to 2. 3 of those levels weren't preparing students to do much after school. We abandoned that fixed mindset, adopted much more of a growth mindset, utilizing some of Dr. Dweck's work. We want to value effort, and we want to value growth. We don't give zeros. Some school systems give arbitrary 50s. If you don't complete the work, there's a space there. And the space reminds the teacher and the student that the work needs to be completed because it's the work that matters. So we're not going to give a 50 like many school systems do. We're going to say the space is there. Let's get that student to complete the work. 15 years ago, we had really no devices in district. We had a handful of devices that were used by students in special education programs. Fast forward today, we're 1-to-1 plus. Most of our students are operating 2 to 3-to-1. We make sure that we have access for all. We still have students who need Wi-Fi access. We have Khajiit hotspots. They sign it out like you'd sign a book out at the library. We have many digital resources and providers, and everyone was great during COVID. You know, here's a free trial. We stayed true to what we already knew, what our students knew, what our families knew, and what our teachers were used to using. We have a single sign-on solution. Students can't be, and staff cannot be using multiple sign-ons. We had our board really take a look at their own goals for student learning and make sure that their goals were more student-centered. And as a district, we're challenged. I mean, we're the 2nd lowest funded district in the state of Connecticut. And you could see only Danbury spends less per student than Meriden does on their children. And if you look at what that means, you're talking, when you look at our neighbors, you're talking about having 20 million to 65 million more a year to spend on students. And I'm going to share some of the challenges, but I'm going to also make sure that I share all the successes that we're having because it's working. So that's why we must utilize competitive grants. If there's grants out there that we can apply for, we need to be active in applying for those grants. We need to maximize every entitlement grant that's available, most of them coming from the federal government or from state as well. And then we have to have partnerships, and we have to value those partnerships. We have to work together. We have great partnerships with our teachers union and our administrators union. Once a month, we invite every week we meet as a core central office team. Once a month, we ask our union leaders to come to make sure that we're all on the same page. And we have great partnerships with the city. They're always a phone call away or a walk across the street for us. Partnership with CSDE, the Connecticut State Department of Ed, definitely great partners. They were in district today as our meals, MPS Express was rolling around serving meals over the summer months. We have partnerships with outside foundations and philanthropy, and some of our funders had traditionally funded charter schools and private schools, but if they're willing to invest their money in a public school system who wants to be innovative and creative, we're right there to sign up. Great partnerships with higher ed, and that's been a benefit for our students and our staff. Middlesex runs a branch out of Platt High School, and the arrangement we had, they don't pay rent, but we get 5 free seats in any class they run at the high school, and those seats can be filled by staff or students. Good partnerships with the business community, some who are here with us today. And obviously the most important partnership is the partnership we have with our families. And when you look at our enrollment, other school districts are going down. Meriden's enrollment is going up. So look at our neighbors. They're seeing some significant drops. We're seeing increase. I mentioned the special ed, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we're high at 21.4% of our population in special ed. Where we really need to focus some of our efforts, this is special education programs that are highly regulated, and you need a major amount of staff. Some districts are outplacing students in these programs. We're trying to do it internally, and that's been one of our best cost savings measures. But we also look as the increases come, staffing these programs is becoming a challenge. Our bilingual and ESOL enrollment, we're up 717 students in the last 4 years. I mean, that's like a whole school. I mean, that's bigger than any elementary school we have. That's pressing on the enrollment of our middle schools. We've worked hard to diversify our workforce. The picture on our left is NAACP local president, was vice president, I think, of the state chapter and a former board member, going down to historically black colleges and universities. Building some of those partnerships has been helpful and beneficial to us as well. We send our board members up to help us recruit at the Yukon Career Fair, and they're up there with contracts in hand. We can't wait. If you wait, say, we'd love to interview you, someone's grabbed those candidates before they get to us. We also started a collaboration with universities in Puerto Rico, sent a team down there to do some work. We partnership with the state, the Relay Graduate School of Education, which can help us fast track those who aren't certified to teach, but maybe are working in our school system in other capacities. Continue to encourage enrollment in this program. We also worked with CREC, very difficult. I mentioned the special education challenges, so getting folks who maybe didn't think they wanted to teach special ed but are looking for a change, if we can fast track them to special ed certification, that can help us as well. We utilize the ARC, the alternate route to certification, to get folks who've been out in the community. Maybe they're in the business world now. They're interested in a change. Let's work with the state to get them certified to be teachers. I mentioned how we've worked hard to diversify our workforce. Still a lot of work to do here, but the state's at about 11.7% of total teacher workforce in Connecticut identifying as racially diverse. Meriden's at 13.1%. But when you look at the last 7 years, we're starting to make some small gains there. For us, it's about creating those innovative facilities. I mentioned a partnership with the city. Councilor Rohde, who's here with us, who was adamant that we're going to get one bite at this apple, that we do it right. there's $230 million invested in 2 state-of-the-art high schools. Both went through like-new renovations, and both are unique, but both will provide exceptional high school learning facilities for our students. A great partnership with the city and as well as the state with their reimbursement metrics. We have Genius Labs at our elementary schools, STEM Labs at our middle schools, multilingual and AP lounges at our high schools. We have a Success Academy. That's one of those 3 associated programs. It's for overaged and undercredited students, or those students who maybe need a more restorative approach to their learning. We have sensory rooms to meet the needs of our specialized special ed population. We have outdoor classrooms. We partner with the city when it makes sense. If they have a playground in a neighborhood and it's close to our schools and we can get double use out of it, that's what we've been doing. A great partnership with the Parks Department and Chris Borden. Similar at Ben Franklin. Redesigning our media center, making sure that we value these facilities. Our staff wants to be in quality buildings. Our students want to be in quality buildings. And I would be comfortable bringing any visitor into any one of our schools, regardless of the age of the facility. We launched a career academy. We took a wing of classrooms at Washington Middle School, and we now have a career academy program that we're launching for those students who are more interested in going into competitive employment after graduation. If we can get them some of the skills and get them working with some of the machines that later they may need to use, it's a step in the right direction. We launched a new sports complex, another partnership with the city. We have the first 2 turf diamonds utilizing federal funds. We did it. You'll see the mayor cutting the ribbon here. So we have a softball turf diamond and now a baseball turf diamond. Air conditioning added to our elementary schools where it made sense and we could do it. Pavilions across the district. That's our large pavilion, can do events with over 100 people. We have our MPS Express that I mentioned was out today. It goes around serving meals throughout the summer. And here's our schedule, again, a partnership with the city. Ultimately, it comes down to student success. We need to know that our students are doing well and performing well. Last year, we had 5 state schools of distinction. Here's the list. That's more than any urban district or alliance district in the state. Only 2 districts, Greenwich and I believe Trumbull, had more than us, but a very successful year for the Meriden Public Schools. We look at our English Language Arts Performance K-8. What you want to see is you want to see more green on a 1-year change and 5-year average change, and you'll see that some positive gains here for us in English Language Arts. Still plenty of work to do. And then you look at it, and we're going to share the data. The data is what it is, and it needs to guide us, but here's the communities that we've outperformed on SBA. That's getting students to proficient or better. 15 years ago, we were outperforming some of the large urbans only. Now our students are doing a tremendous job, as well as our staff. And going into next year, here's preliminary results. The progress we had, it looks like we're going to have a very strong year this year, especially at the elementary level. We do the same for math. Again, want to see more green and some of the positive gains we made, and then the communities that we outperformed. And this is proficiency, so this is getting students to meet standard. And again, anticipating some positive gains 3 through 5, looking differently at how we're going to handle 6th grade, because students leave 5th grade where they have 1 teacher all day, and then they get to 6th grade where they have 5 or 6 teachers and they have all this freedom. So we're going to shrink their world a little bit in 6th grade. They're going to have basically 2 core teachers, and we'll start that transition a little bit differently, and we'll see. And we're going to make sure that in the process we increase time for English Language Arts and math. Because I'm looking at the gains we're making, and I keep seeing 6th grade pop out, and no, we need to try something different. And what we say is, look, we're willing to try anything. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. It's okay to try something that doesn't work, but it's not okay to continue to do things that aren't working. With our high schools, we work together through a Bar Foundation grant to create a true community-driven portrait of a graduate. Like, what do our graduates need to be successful later in life, regardless of what they do, whether it's competitive employment, the military, or higher ed. One of the most important things for us is offering the highest level classes we can. Here's a list of some of the college credit earning classes that we offer in our district. This shows you the growth we've made. So you can see in 10-11 how many students were taking college credit classes. Fast forward to this past year, and you can see most striking, especially with some of our underrepresented subgroups, the gains have been tremendous. And then we look at how many are getting those 3s or better. That's important because most colleges will award them credit for getting a 3 or better. We look at our SATs, tons of work still to do here, but at least we had positive gains year over year, so the trend is at least in the right direction. We look at our next generation science standards, NGSS assessment, again, some positive small gains. Our graduation rate, and this is a 4-year graduation rate, which I always say, if you look at our 5 or 6 year, much higher, but this is 4-year. And the state requires us now, for some students who are in specialized special ed programs, to stay with us potentially to their 23rd birthday. So we automatically are getting not credited for those students on this metrics with 4-year. But it is what it is. We're going to track it. We're going to continue to look at it, and we're going to look student by student who's not making it and see how we can support them. And we're not going to give up. If you didn't make it in 4 years, let's get you in 5. Let's get you in 6 if that's what it takes. Ultimately, every year we put together a list of our colleges that our graduates are attending. Here's some of the schools that our graduates will be going next year. And I say I can go in any community across the state, and the colleges we get our students into looks just like whether you're in a school in New Canaan or you're in a school in Meriden. And we say our goal is to make sure that we provide something more for everyone, that we have opportunities for all of our students, and that's what we'll continue to do. So that's it. Sure.
For the last 25 years, I've been an advocate for special ed. I've worked with a lot of your schools, and I've worked, the whole team of special ed literature. But there is a but. Many times when I was working under the hat of favor, favors of revenue, and we try to get into the school system. Me and Nydia were part of this decision. And we tried to bring in curriculums into the school system. Never was able to. And this curriculum is to give the tools to the staff and to the parents, PTA, and so on and so forth. Did anything like that ever happen since it's been a while that I've been working with it?
So we have outside groups that come in and work with us.
Because I know when I was trying,
So
it didn't happen.
outside BCBAs, so our board certified behavior analysts we hire outside contracts to come in and do that. And for some students, quite honestly, we're going to partner with ACEs or the RESC, and they're going to need a more restrictive environment. We started a climate specialist and a behavior tech team. Climate specialists to more work with general population, behavior techs to work with more specialized population. So those are some of the things that we've done. And I would say it's important as everyone sits here that when we say we're going to do something more for everyone, then we want to make sure that we're supporting our special ed students in special education as well.
Mark, I always tell you over and over again, but I am very impressed with the work that you do, because having that level of diversity, it has to be incredibly challenging to do your work. So I commend you one more time for the work that you guys have been doing. I also commend you for the work that you have been doing with the ESL students and ESOL students. It has been absolutely wonderful. And since you have 43% of your population is Hispanic, we're talking here about strategic planning and strategic planning around the workforce. I think, and I recognize that it costs money, but it would be a wonderful opportunity for the Meriden Public Schools to graduate fully bilingual Spanish and English students. Those will be the workforce that is so very much needed, not only in Meriden, but in our state, to take those jobs where it's easy to find people who are people who speak Spanish, but they are not fully bilingual. If you could be, if the Meriden Public Schools could be the hub in the state that graduates these fully bilingual students, I think that it would be an absolutely wonderful asset for.
Barb, how many do we have? So the state has a program, it's called the Connecticut Seal of Biliteracy, and for, it doesn't matter, it's 2 languages, but for us, most of them, English and Spanish. We might have had someone with Portuguese, someone with Italian, but how many do we have? Like
54 this past year. Just
50.
That is,
It's a step in the right direction, but I don't look at out of 600 graduates, I'd rather have it be 300, you know, but.
And it would be wonderful to have a district-wide, but anyway, I recognize
thank you.
that is.
You have a question here?
Yeah, I just have a question. So in terms of strategic planning, I just saw the article where another family, Lord, the building, the brick building over by,
85 Tremont Street? Is that,
they're turning into housing.
Yeah.
that's 85 Tremont.
Yeah, so I have all 3 of my children. Thank you. All 3 of my children are part of Medco Public Schools, and they're.
No, thank you,
phenomenal.
thank you, thank you.
I am a. Your work is really amazing because I had 3 kids in 3 different schools, and I didn't have an issue with conflict. Like the schools were able to all work together. But I wonder what the plan is for accepting all of this influx of students with the funding being what it was, right? So you showed that slide of where we are in terms of funding compared to other cities. So what's the plan in trying to support this influx of students coming into Meriden with family housing growing and kind of being built throughout the city?
That's a great question. So the board, most years would give a budget and they would kind of, all right, this is a maintenance budget, so we're going to maintain current services. This year, they had asked, the Board of Education asked us to make sure that we put in what were the additional costs we were already experiencing, because we had about 200 new students come, and it wasn't just in bilingual ESL, it was heavy in special education, which is even more, it's a more costly, and they asked us to put some of those figures together, which we did add to our budget. And then it came, just like any negotiation, I think we lived for another day. So we have a budget that will get us through next year, but we're going to be at this point. But in my 15 years here, I say it every year to everyone, like we live for tomorrow. And if we have a budget that can work for tomorrow, let's go with that. And I think the council did add a small increase. The state really stepped up with excess ECS funding for us. We have lobbied hard on excess cost around special education reimbursement funding, because many of our students, they're coming bilingual and special ed. It's a dual need. But so I would say, so we added in some tutors, we added in an additional teacher, we added in additional support staff. The thing that we didn't think of, like sometimes you don't catch everything, is the transportation requirements, because we were transporting now students all across the city at a time when hopefully it becomes automated, and I don't, because they're struggling to find drivers. If you ask what people complain the most about, it's transportation. We tried. Go ahead.
I just want to also, if you all have questions for all the other speakers, we have room for about a half hour more. I have a question, Mark, about private collaboration, private partnership.
Yep.
I have a fascination with, business and industry needs talented people, skilled people, no matter what the skills are, whether it's healthcare, manufacturing, any of the sectors, particularly manufacturing and some of what Mark was talking about. Paul was talking about. Do any of these collaborations involve them giving you money?
So
collaboration.
So the short answer to the question is yes. The other answer, because I'll have counselors thinking I can just use that money for whatever, and not saying Counselor Rohde, who's very supportive, but others will say, well, use that for this. The grant is very restrictive. So if they're going to give us money and it's for 9th grade on track status for 9th graders. So that's where you could. That may allow us to add an extra student counselor to work with at-risk 9th graders. So the money is very targeted, but definitely it's resources.
I find in STEM industries, for example, there's been some funding of things through the industry, but they need the workers. They should help. They should help in some of those things.
Nellie Mae, this is going back probably a decade, gave us a big grant around student-centered learning, giving students greater voice and choice in their learning. The Barr Foundation gave us a good grant really to work on, like, what do graduates of the future need? And we always say this, we're preparing students for jobs that don't even exist, like we don't know what they are. So you want, if you have them challenge themselves to take the highest level classes they can, and we move the needle for everyone, I think that's how we're going to put ourselves in the best spot.
All right, other questions for any of the other speakers as well? Time we have left.
One more for Mark, and obviously my last question for Mark. Do you know what's the figures of more bilingual certified staff teaching the class? Before you became superintendent, of course, I was part of a collaboration of a study that they were doing in the school system. With the NAACP, we were doing it. And we were trying to find out the ratio of Latinos to students. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it was lacking. Like, a lot of students need to see themselves teaching the class.
So
You know,
I would say to you, it's still lacking. I have the general data that you see. If we're at 80% students of color and our staff's at 13 or 14%,
That's certified staff. What we've done a good job of doing is getting some classified support staff and then trying to get those support staff to then go back, whether it's the Relay Graduate School of Education program, whether it's, we have a partnership with Central. They'll take, one of our staff members has like 30 credits all floating out there. They'll graph it for them and say, all right, the quickest way for you to become a certified teacher would be the elementary route. This is what you would need to do. Some of that has worked well. But I would say this is a national, statewide problem. And unless you incentivize people, look, you're not going to change the dynamic. If I go and speak to college classes, and the college class I'm speaking to has very few candidates of color, that's who's coming out in the pool. So, but I think the way to do it is, first of all, we have to stop bashing public education and start recognizing that it's still the great equalizer, it still works for America. And then we need to look at our current students in our high schools, get them excited and let them know that teaching could be a great career. But when you talk to students, I'm hearing too much. The last thing I want to do is become a teacher. And eventually, it is a great career. It's a rewarding job. And I spoke to a group of aspiring superintendents. I said the same thing. Don't be shy away from the superintendency. It's a great job. Thanks.
So this is the conclusion of the strategic planning sessions. We had 5 altogether, including the introductory one. And we will be working as a committee with Medco, the city, and the chamber to come up with a written document of sort of an overview. We're going to be announcing, do we have everybody's address who attends these things? So we're going to be giving you an opportunity to go and look at all the videos of all these sessions, so you could be reminded, I need to be reminded of, particularly on the data in the beginning of where we are as a city. And then we'll, probably do some public engagement on a work plan. I'm going to turn it back to Joe to kind of wrap things up. There's going to be some time to eat and talk to the other speakers. So thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you again, everyone, for coming this evening. I'd like to thank our speakers for your energy today that you brought to us and your knowledge of your specialty fields. And Meriden, you're always welcome. So thank you very much. We saved Mark for last. I brag when I am in front of companies and we're talking about why they should move to Meriden. And one of the things I said is it's a great place to raise your children, and we have an excellent school system. And we have leadership that is dedicated, homegrown, and wants to see people succeed. So it's an easy sell because I could sell it with a straight face, as I'm doing right now to you. We are very proud of this. I do have the Meriden Board of Education and a lot of pieces that I give out to people and on videos. And tonight I just got a couple extra clips that he didn't know about, but we're going to be using them as well too. So again, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us. There are refreshments in the back, but before I release you all to go eat and have something some water, are there any more questions for anybody here? You can also, our speakers will be around afterwards. You can privately go up and have a conversation with them as well too. Councilor Rhodey.
Looking at the future, AI tends to be the biggest monster on the horizon. about displacing millions of jobs. It's happening before our eyes. What are we doing to incorporate or address AI in some meaningful way for our school system?
For our school system, if you would like to jump up at some point, but for our school system, I think probably what we are doing is teaching the hands-on. I think Mark was kind of joking about the Pac-Man game and everything else, and what we're teaching them to do right now. I, for instance, know if I have a problem with my iPhone, it's a lot quicker to hand it over to my daughter because she's taught this type of education that has a lot more computer-based approach to it versus the old days where we used to open up a book and sit in those chairs that I never fit in, but that was a different story for me. But so I think we are teaching the education. And Mike, if you remember too, Scott Sattler from Ragazzino's, when he stood here and was talking about expansion, that they have, some of it is going to be computerized, but he's also looking at taking the people that he has working right now on that line and bringing them into the different facets of the new expansion of the company. So that's where some of that is going to happen as well. And I think the comment you made, we'll never have enough people to fill the workforce that we're going to need. So the AI stuff is going to help us stay as one of the premier manufacturers. In what number are we? Seven? What'd you say? What number are we as far as the state was concerned?
Depends on what you.
What I was referring to.
Number one or number two?
Number one or number two. So I mean, I think that's a positive thing. So and Meriden recently up on Murdoch Avenue or North Farms just brought in some manufacturers that were located in Brantford and New Haven. So I mean, we have some new stuff coming into us, and that's an excellent sign, and we've got more coming. So again, I'd like to say thank you very much. You don't want to listen to me for the rest of the night, so please go have some water and some sandwiches, and we'll talk to you soon.